Okay, by now you probably have heard of Hi-Fi Rush, a rhythm action brawler type game released by Bethesda in a stealth drop after Microsoft's Xbox showcase. This game is catching the internet by storm, but I'm not here to talk too much about the game, although I'll show some footage here if you want to see it. And I do recommend you try it. It is a really good game. I'm here to talk about the idea of Hi-Fi Rush being a strong argument for more game releases to Shadowdrop. Oh, what does this mean? Well, basically, Hi-Fi Rush, if you did not know, was released a few hours after the Xbox press release the other day on Game Pass, where if you had it, you can try it for absolute free, no cost to you. It did really well, and it shined through because, well, the game is polished, it's fun, it's got a couple small issues, but nothing that really gets in the way of your enjoyment of the game, and it's also original. All of those things led to it, well, succeeding. But PC Gamer here, who decided to tweet this out, didn't really seem to use their brains. It's Bethesda as the publisher using a Microsoft event with millions of views, and Tango Studios, who is a known entity in gaming. So we come through and we see some thoughts here. Claudia the dev, who is developing Ova Magica, wrote that this was terrible advice for indie or unknown studios with no Bethesda behind them, and I tend to agree with that sentiment. Anarchy on Twitter, shadow dropping a game is an interesting marketing move, but I don't think it works as well for Hi-Fi Rush without Game Pass. And, I mean, it's true. Game Pass is massive and allows a ton of people to just try the games. Adam Bolton here wrote something that I thought was very, very important. I feel like there's something massive being overlooked here. Most games don't get a Microsoft-backed Bethesda showcase to surprise drop their game with. Not only that, but Tango Gameworks isn't an unknown entity, like I said. If any other studio tried this, especially indies or a studio without the backing of two major corporations, the game would be dead on arrival and lost to time. Okay, so I want to look at two games that released in the last 2 years, which have sort of shadow dropped. The first one from EA is Rocket Arena. It's a third-person shooter, 3 versus 3, that came out for Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One in 2020. It released with some general news. It had very middling Metacritic scores, and most importantly, it has a peak player count of 7 in the last 30 days on Steam. Its all-time high on Steam is less than 700. If you think you could support a game with that, you're crazy. But what about another one that maybe did a little bit better? Here's Knockout City, which I've played and have put videos up on my gaming channel of. It's pretty fun. It's also free to play on Steam right now. Originally released in 2021 by EA, taken over by Valen Studios because it was doing so poorly after it dropped with almost nothing. It had pretty good scores. 83, 80, 82 are not bad Metacritic scores at all. It's currently sitting at 184 concurrent players with a 24-hour peak of 256. With that said, for the first month after it came out, it did have over 5,000 peak players, so concurrent, which is pretty decent, I guess. So just to put that into perspective, over the past 40 hours on Steam alone, and remember, this game is bigger on Game Pass than on Steam, it's already beaten the all-time high of these other games. Just by looking at 3 games, I can tell you that this is probably not a viable strategy for everyone at all. You need to be careful with just making games and dropping it. And a little while ago, I heard the same argument being made for this game, Stray, which did very, very well and sold many, many copies. And Aspera's second highest rated game, according to Metacritic, of last year. Neon White beat it, but it did not do as well. So apparently just make a good game doesn't even get you more sales than other games. But I want to look at the fact that it wasn't Shadowdrop. It was marketed like crazy. The game started development in 2015 and had small little dev blogs put out all the time. We're not digging into that. In 2020, they released a trailer as part of E3 that got 4.3 million views on its own, not counting as part of the conference. And then in 2022, about a month before the release, they did the same thing. They released a trailer with 2 million views just before release. So Stray is actually an example of why this is not a good idea. I don't know what people are thinking when they argue just make a good game, because for all intents and purposes, Knockout City is a good game. Rocket Arena, much less so, but it's still a decent game. Listen to the people who are actually, making the games, that see the numbers on their back end. They know how many wish lists they have. They know how many people view the games. They know that just dropping them ends up burying your indie game when it does not have a Bethesda and a Microsoft behind it. That's all for my rant. Have a good day.